Welcome back to Post-Orthodoxy Discussions. I'm Kerry.
And I'm Mike.
Mike with his microphone.
Yep.
So, welcome back. It's been a while.
I don't know if I published our last episode, so this is either number 3 or 4.
Yeah, I don't think you published the last episode either. I don't
We've
even
been
know what number
busy
one.
and we've got some.
Well, we went on a family trip. I took a bunch of trips to help
I
my
think
mom
you've been out of
move.
town like 3 times since we last
I
did a
think so
podcast.
too. And then we went out of town as a family. It's been
Mhm.
crazy. And our work schedules are we don't have a lot of time to sit down and do things like this. So it's great.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
Glad we're back.
Me too.
Yeah.
Today's August 9th, 2022.
Mhm.
We're reporting to you live from Idaho.
Exciting.
So, yeah, I just finished my second semester in my master's program. And I don't know if I mentioned in our last podcast episode, but I did. I got that internship and I'm going to go to Orem, Utah to do some training in a couple weeks.
So I'll be out of town again.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've done a lot of that lately, but that's what summer's for, right?
Yeah.
Going out of town. So.
And we sort of died off, but we've had some listeners express some angst at us for not podcasting.
Not frequently enough. They say that they're kind of eating up our content and really enjoying it. Mostly it's people, I think, that are in their deconstruction phase.
Yeah.
Which we did this too.
Yes.
We loved, and that's kind of why we do this. We know what it feels like to be searching out there for something that resonates with you. Mm-hmm. So I hope this resonates with some people, and we're going to try and be more consistent.
Yes, we'll be publishing episodes weekly, ideally on Mondays. We'll see. We had this listener said, "Hey, why haven't either of you done a podcast in a while?" ? So I said, "I'm lazy and we've been busy."
Yeah. I don't think it's lazy. Fun. Yeah. But, I don't think it's laziness. I honestly think it's just been a crazy month.
It has been a crazy month. Life's crazy.
It is. Yeah. Life's crazy. So, so is Mormon news.
Yes. Good segue there.
I know. Smooth, right?
Yeah. So we've got an AP article that was published on August 4th, so 5 days ago.
If you haven't heard about it.
Yeah. Just listen to the title of this article, ready? Because I like to watch, political drama TV shows, mm-hmm. And sometimes they'll have an investigative reporter put out a big paper, and they're like, the lawyers will. This one episode of the show I'm watching this week, the lawyers are like, well, we can't say that, we can't say this, and so the title of articles are really telling. So you ready for this? 7 years of sex abuse, how Mormon officials let it happen. That should have an exclamation point,
and I think there's a two parts to that. This is really interesting because it's going to deal a lot with kind of what we're talking about in the podcast today. Mm-hmm. So Mormon sex abuse is one part, the horrific, sad part, but then how Mormon leaders let it happen. Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of the bigger, broader picture of this whole story is how...
Are we focusing more on that second part, how they let it happen?
I think we can focus on both.
Okay.
But I think that, there's a bigger, broader thing than just the abuse.
Yeah.
For sure. Definitely. And I actually watched a movie last night.
Yeah, I felt...
Yesterday was my birthday. But
happy birthday, Kerry. She is now, once again, 3 years older than me.
And he always makes fun of that. And I'm one of those weird people. Like, there were so many people that were like, happy 21st birthday. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I had a kid when I was 3 months old.
Yeah, so, we've got a 21-year-old.
Yeah, I like to, I'm not afraid of my age.
She's always owned her age. Mm-hmm. Like, she hated it when people would say,
and I actually would rather be like, hey, I'm 47 mm-hmm. and I feel great. I'm 44. He likes to be weird, but it's weird because I'm not like, I've never been that person that doesn't like my age.
No, she likes her age.
And I hate it when people try to call me a younger age because I'm like, man, I'm fantastic at 47.
Isn't she a gorgeous 47-year-old?
Yeah, and not only that, I'm confident, I'm secure, and it seems like every year
Confidenter-er.
Secure-er.
Well, I did point out to you today in the hot tub when we were in the hot tub this morning that you're closer to 50 and I'm closer to 40.
And I think he joked about that once on an Instagram post, and like one of your uncles came at you. He was like, "Oh, that's so mean," and I'm like, "That's just the truth." It's like so true, and it's weird. I think it's weird the whole thing like that would never be a joke if it was the other way. Like if you were older than me,
Oh, I would
it
joke
would
about
never
it.
be a joke.
You
No,
couldn't joke about it?
but it wouldn't be a joke.
Do
It's
we need
not.
to like restart over this? Have I said of something offensive?
No, you haven't said something offensive. I just think that's a weird, and it's not just a Mormon thing. It's a very cultural thing that, like, if you were 3 years older than me,
Uh-huh.
we would never make it a thing to be like, oh, he's 3 years older than me. But people are kind of like,
We'll get comments hopefully on this.
people have, it's kind of a shocking thing, like, oh, you're older than him?
Yeah.
I don't know why that is.
I guess they don't have
Probably a patriarchy thing.
They don't have a male term for cougar, do they?
Gigolo? I don't know. Is that it?
I
I don't know. Tell us if you know.
Anyways, you had your birthday. Why did we sidetrack onto that?
Because I was saying you went to sleep because you have to work at 3 o'clock in the morning,
Yes,
which
I
is
got
fine.
up at 3 in the
So
morning.
I stayed up and I watched a movie. I rented a movie on Prime called Spotlight, and it's about the reporter who broke the it was this group of reporters and they broke the news about the sex scandal in the Catholic Church. So interesting, and if you watch it, oh my goodness, just like with any other religious movie that you watch, there's so many comparisons, and especially because this is so fresh in everybody's mind. You will watch that movie and just be like, "Wow!" Like the how did it happen? That whole thing plays a lot into this movie, and the same guy reported it. What's the guy?
Michael Resendez.
Yeah, he's in the movie. He's one of the
Michael
lead guys, and there you go.
Yeah, so this is out of Bisbee, Arizona. And I think the main issue is that Arizona and Idaho, that we live in, are two states that don't require ecclesiastical leaders to be mandatory reporters when there is suspicion or confession heard of sex abuse. That's the main issue, pretty much. Was that your take?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. In fact, the first quote that they put in here is, let's see. So this so if you haven't read the article, go to the link, read it, come back. But in summary, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has a hotline set up, and this is for assistance for ecclesiastical leaders. It is the 1-800-453-3860, extension 21911. And it's for ecclesiastical leaders to get assistance on understanding and it's sad. It's just lawyers telling them their requirements.
Yeah, that is sad. Well, and I kind of came up with a better term for this.
Okay.
So there's a hotline, but the big issue with that hotline is people then defer their decision making power and authority, and I'm big on that. Like your decision making power, they defer it to an organization's hotline
For the lawyers.
Yeah, and in the AP article, that bishop was even saying, that I think he even mentioned it, or like
What it said. Instead, so the bishop kept the abuse secret. The bishop quote said, "They said the hotline told me the bishop,
so he's
you
deferring.
absolutely can do nothing." End quote. And this bishop happens to be his day job. Apparently is in the medical world,
Right.
where he is a mandatory reporter in that world. You'd think he says you absolutely can do nothing. And so because he absolutely did not do anything and did not report this abuse to authorities, it continued for 7 more fucking years.
So I think you hear so many people, like there has been just huge divided conversation about this. And people will say, these leaders are good men, the church is good, all this stuff. And I do think most bishops are really good men.
Yeah.
But they are told that they need to defer, and then they decide to defer.
Yeah.
They make that decision because there's a point. Lots of decisions were made to make this happen.
Yes.
But they decided to defer all of that power, decision making power, to the church, and so their goodness and their good intentions really didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
At the end, so that really doesn't matter that they're a good person.
So there's this overarching conversation that's taking place on TikTok and in general when it comes to religions. Okay, we have this vertical concept of vertical authority or horizontal authority. And when you have vertical authority, when you are in an organization that has focuses on orthodoxy, like keyword of ours, when you have someone above you, you can make a decision and based on what they say. And that can be an immoral decision.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm having a conversation with some people on TikTok about what is moral and objective morality, all these things. But my point is that when you are in a system that defines, what right and wrong, that system.
Or if you say the best thing to do
Mhm.
is follow the leader.
Yeah, that's
Okay. And that's kind of culty.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a little bit culty, and obviously it causes a lot of problems.
Yeah.
It causes some serious damage, and not all the time either. Like, I'm not trying to make blanket statements here. I'm sure there are times where things have been told that where it's turned out great, but it sets up a system where bad things can happen and the victim isn't protected. So
Well,
that's
a system
problem
where
too.
people can choose to go against their values.
Yeah.
Because if this person, this bishop we're talking about here, his name's mentioned in the article, I don't see any to mention his name here, right? If his profession is in the medical world, so I'm going to make an assumption that he values saving one of his personal values, both religiously and professionally, is to protect children.
Right.
But in this situation, he chose to go against those values. Why? Because
he deferred them. Yeah.
He deferred to
the
someone
organization
higher than him.
Yep.
And I'm trying to
because that's what we are told. That's what we are told to do.
That's what we're told to do.
That's the system that's been set in place. Yep. And so again, I said this before, but I think it can be repeated again. So many people when defending this, and I know this is hard to hear for true believing members, to hear an article like that. They immediately, most people, their defenses go up and they try to defend the church, just saying the church would never do that. The church leaders would never do that. Bishops would never do that. Well, the fact of the matter is they did.
Yeah.
So they did do that. So let's all figure out why that happened. I think that's why people are so, there is such a divide about this, is that we're not even thinking that there are people out there that think that nothing needs to be done because basically this was the prophet's set up system and you don't question the prophet. I don't know if I'm being too simplistic, but that's kind of how I.
No, you don't. I don't think you are. And I think one of the issues too is that, so again, I was in a TikTok live this week and someone made the comment they were learning, their faith begins they're started to deconstruct, and someone said to them, said, I learned that the church wasn't safe for everyone. And if it's not safe for everyone, it's not safe for anyone.
That's a great quote. They said that in your live?
Yeah.
That's great. That's a great quote.
Yeah. If it's harmful for anyone, it's harmful for everyone. Mm-hmm. And so there's this TikToker, this member of the church who was saying, well, I was a bishop, and when I was a bishop, they never told me to do that, and that wasn't my experience. And I've sent a question to him, and I haven't gotten a reply back, was, well, what state were you in?
So bad.
Because that's the difference, right?
So bad, yeah.
Because basically the issue is that the church, and I've got some, I've gone to the Gospel Library app and have some information to share from the church's handbook of instruction. It just contradicts it. The church's handbook of instruction says, and I don't know if believing members of the church listen to us, but if they do, I'd like you to be
But I
familiar
know
with your
there's
church handbook
I know there's
instruction.
deconstructing members or members
Yes,
that are on the fence or
yes,
feeling bad about this
yeah.
issue that are still believing members.
So,
So
Church Handbook of Instruction, policy 36.6.18. Please listen carefully. If members suspect or become aware of sexual abuse, they take actions to protect victims and others as soon as possible. This includes reporting to civil authorities and alerting the bishop or stake president. So if you're a member of the church and you have become aware of or are simply suspect of abuse, the Church Handbook of Instruction instructs you to take actions to prevent victims and others, to protect them, and to notify. This includes reporting to civil authorities. And then it says to alert the bishops. So your responsibility first and foremost, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, according to policy 38.6.18, are mandatory reporters.
and that's not, I think most people's reaction, correct me if I'm wrong,
No, it's not.
is to call the bishop first.
Nope.
And then the bishops, what are the bishop's instructions? I know, tell me what the bishop's instructions are. Because you had the same instructions as the bishop as a seminary teacher.
Yes.
Tell me what they are. Like, what are you supposed to do when you hear someone, like a kid comes to you,
Yeah, so
talks about abuse?
they changed the policy recently before I quit my job, and it was frustrating to me. And I pushed back on this real hard. We were supposed to talk to a bishop before we talked to a parent. I did not like that policy. They said if there's issues, I can't remember the exact wording, but if there's issues that you're concerned about with the child, call the bishop before you call the parent. And I pushed back on that one. But yeah, we're supposed to call the church hotline, is what bishops are supposed to do. And the argument
So I think a lot of people I don't even think have heard of this hotline. I had heard of it because it was part of your job.
Yeah.
Right? So I had heard about it a lot, but I think a lot of members, this might be the first time they've heard about it.
I don't know. I'm curious.
So,
if you want to put it in the comments, let us
was
know.
this new to you, like this hotline thing?
Well, no.
I was talking to our listeners. Like, is this new to you?
Is it new to you? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, follow, and whatever, subscribe, all that other shit, right? So the thing about it is, and I'm looking up the article right now, is the church's argument that if the state does not require the person to be a mandatory reporter, the bishop shouldn't report it. That's their argument. And that goes, I think, now your big issue is that they should have, this would go away. Children would not be, abuse would not continue after this if the church simply changed their policy to say that Jesus taught that if you offend a child, you should have a millstone hung around your neck and thrown into the ocean. Mm-hmm. Therefore, it is the policy of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that any member, regardless of position,
gender,
report any abuse or when they are suspect of abuse. But that policy says that when I read, but then it has a separate policy for leaders. It says members. Yeah. It treats members and leaders different.
And honestly, most members are going to go to their bishop first.
Yeah, they are.
That's just and I think, I don't know if the higher ups know that, but you would think that they do. You would think.
Well, so we have another thing going on. Our good friend Brad Wilcox. Hey, Brad.
Oh, is there new Brad Wilcox stuff?
Yeah.
I don't know Brad.
I didn't tell you, did I?
Thanks.
So Brad would have considered him a colleague of mine. I never met him.
So I have to say something funny here. This is a good time for a funny anecdote.
All right, let's hear it.
So there's a podcast I did with my sister called Holy Sisters Podcast. We haven't done it for a long time because she's in the middle of moving and all this stuff. So we might resurrect the podcast. later on.
Whenever you go
Haha,
visit her.
funny. So it's possible. But we did some stuff when the major Bride Wilcox thing came out. For a couple weeks, we did a funny thing where we said, hey, we need to give him a general authority name. And you know how there's like C. Michael, what's the name?
You think you came up with this, but this isn't you.
No, I came up with this.
But other people have too. Go ahead.
Other people came up. Okay, well, let me think that it's mine.
It is yours.
So, because he was just Brad Wilcox, he didn't have like the initials, so we called him F. Brad Wilcox. Other people came up with that.
I think I've heard it. Let us know in the comments.
Let me know if that's my original idea. So,
well, he wrote an article with somebody else. I didn't have it up, but I just have a screenshot of it, and it's funny because it's in the Deseret News, and he is a member of the General Young Men's Presidency. But at the end of this article, it doesn't say Brad Wilcox, President Wilcox, member of the General Young Men's Presidency, like it should. It says he's a director of the National Marriage Project at the University of Virginia or something. It's like they're sort of distancing themselves from it.
could be.
Yeah.
Could be.
Well, the premise of this article is that people that, according to Pew Research, if you are active in a religion, you self-report that you're happy than those that report that they're not in a religion. Therefore, even if you have problems with the church that you're in, you should stay in it because you'll be happier. Mm-hmm. Well, I have a couple pushbacks against that. Number one, you're comparing religious people with people that say they're not religious and saying, yes, these people report that they're happier than these people. Well, we're not in either of these groups. We're in a third group.
Oh, okay.
People that have left a religion.
Okay, yeah.
So my question is...
So they're talking to people that are in religions and people who have never been in religion.
Yes, and we're over here. We've left a religion. And so...
We might be up here.
Yeah. So do people that report that they've left a religion, do they report themselves to be happier?
That'd be interesting. Someone needs to do like some research on that.
I know. If I ever do a PhD, I will.
Do it. That'd be so interesting.
Do you report yourself to be happier now that you've find yourself outside of religion? Okay. Quick, I'm asking you, Kerry.
Oh, I thought you were like saying this is what you'd ask in your PhD. So yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I just and sometimes we're amazed by it. And we'll ask each other, like, are we really as happy as we think we are? And it's not, I mean, we're dealing with issues and problems too. So it's not like we're Pollyanna, nothing's wrong. We're still dealing with life's issues, but I am so much happier with all the baggage because you still had to deal with those in a religion too. Oh yeah. It's just, I'm dealing with the same issues, but with a much healthier mindset. And I'm dealing without the shame. Mm-hmm. Life without manufactured shame is just fucking bliss. Yeah. Right. And I am just so happy, and this might be a female thing. I am just my own authority. Mm-hmm. He's not my authority. Bishop's not my authority. Mm-hmm. Stake president, manual, a hotline, mm-hmm. Nothing. It's just me, and I'm in charge of my goodness, and I'm in charge of. I love it. She'll come to me and she'll say, "I need to say something to you so that I can be true to my authenticity." Mm-hmm. And then she'll tell me something that is on her mind which she never would have told me. Something not complain about, but and I say it in a different way. She'll say, "Hey, I'm going to say something because I need to say it to be true to my." That's what you said the other night. Mm-hmm. You're like, I need to say something to be true to my authority, mm-hmm. And then she'd say it, and it'd be like, and then I respond to that. My response was, "Thank you, because I did not know, because I couldn't tell. Mm-hmm. You kept this secret before. Mm-hmm. You said that you were alone when you felt this way, mm-hmm. Right? All of our interactions seem to be copacetic. Yeah, copacetic. Same. Okay, that's what I thought of it, but I was just like, nothing really had changed. Your interactions with me really hadn't changed. Okay. But something that you felt something. Yes. And I hadn't caught on to it yet, and but you expressed. Anyways, mm-hmm. Thank you for doing that. Welcome. Thank you for responding the way you did. Thank you. Great. Anyways, going back to this article, Brad Wilcox. Brad Wilcox says, he says, if you are religious, these failings of your religion should not be a reason to give up on your faith. He says, but get involved and use your gifts to make a difference.
As you do your best to steer your faith in a better direction, you may also help entire communities to live in accord with their best impulses to create a better world. This came out August 1st,
Of this year.
3 days before the AP article. So here's my message to Brad and to members of the church and to us too. I think it's great, right? Use your gifts to get involved, to make a difference, and do your best to steer your faith in a better direction. He is a general authority of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, even though they don't want to put that down here. He is encouraging members of the church to steer the faith in a better direction. That is unheard of. Thank you,
Yeah.
Brad. That's never happened.
Great.
Steer your faith in a better direction. So my question to members of the church, my questions to Brad is, what are you doing now that you've read this article to use your gifts to steer your faith into a better direction?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So
So,
and then at the end of the AP article, I want to go back to it. A child abuse investigator that was a part of this investigation, he asked the question at the end of the AP article. He says, it is completely legal what this bishop did.
oh, sure. Yeah.
And he followed the laws of the land. Unfortunately, that's, every time the Mormon church faces the laws of the land, that's where a lot of the failings come in.
Yeah, like.
Yeah, it was without the laws of the United States of America, blacks would not hold the priesthood today.
Right. Right. And also polygamy, the way they were practicing polygamy.
Polygamy would still be practiced. And so it says here, it says, so whether this is illegal or not is the question. This police officer says, what aspect of your religious practice are you advancing if you don't report something like this?
So this is back to the article.
Yeah.
Okay.
What aspect of your religious practice are you advancing if you don't report something like this? So what is it advancing?
That's a great question. That's really great.
Protecting.
Will you read that one more time? It's
Okay.
just so good. Oh, I know what that means, but read that one more time.
So when men don't report child abuse to the authorities, because it's men that won't do it, right? What aspect of your religious practice are you advancing if you don't report something like this?
I like that. That's a powerful statement. Powerful.
So what is it? What's your answer? What do you think it is?
Nothing. If you don't report, I mean, you're deferring. If you don't report.
What aspect? It's authority?
Authority.
Deference to authority?
Deference to authority. Yep.
And those that are in authority in the church right now.
And I think people need to ask themselves, is that your value? Is deference to authority? It might be. I mean, that might be really important for someone to be like, I like to defer all my decision-making power to other people. That might be.
Might be. And so if somebody is a member of the church or deconstructing or reconstructing like we are, that's a great question. You may still consider yourself a Christian, a full believing member of the church. But in this, I think this concept of a ethical decision-making model applies to anybody in any of those three categories. Do you value priest-penitent privilege over the protection of children? Which is now, we live in the Nampa, Idaho East Stake, and if you Google Nampa, Idaho bishop sex abuse, you'll find the name and information about a bishop in our stake who pled guilty recently to sexual abuse of minors. And I met with our stake president to ask him about the way he handled this. And he even asked me, he said, well, if I told everybody, what would, he wanted me to, how this gentleman, this guy likes to ask questions to get people in. If I'd have told people, what would that, and his point was, is he felt a need to protect the priest penitent privilege so that it just doesn't fit with me. It doesn't match my values.
No, it doesn't.
that's not the first thing about the church that I've said that out loud about.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think it's really interesting too. I heard people, a lot of, as I've been reading comments online and stuff, members would say, this doesn't happen a lot, which I'm a little blown away that people say that because in my very Mormon bubble, I can probably think of, I'm not going to go over all these instances, but I can think of about 4 pretty personal, I mean, like people I knew, situations I knew of personally where this whole situation came into effect. Um, and I just can't imagine that people have not seen the damage already.
Yeah.
If you or and if you don't, I maybe you have your blinders up and don't want to see it because I think it's everywhere. I think it's just everywhere.
Well, I asked the question on a TikTok I posted. I said, would this have happened if this was a school principal instead of a ward bishop?
No, well, they don't have priest-penitent religion
I
schools.
know. And so my question is, people like to get involved when it's a school district issue because they want school district to change for the better. And so they call school board members
and they have open forums where you can.
So if you're a member of the church and this doesn't, if you're anywhere, if you're anyone listening, whoever's listening to this podcast, if this doesn't resonate with you, I would encourage you, like we are, okay, and I still have phone calls I'm going to make to my stake president. I'm going to meet with him.
You're still a member.
Yeah, and my bishop and Mike, and I'm going to encourage both of them. So, let me come back to that. I lost my train of thought.
You're going off all hot and crazy about what you were going to tell him.
Is if this doesn't if you heard about this and it was a high school principal, you would be irate and you would write down a list of things you were going to do. You'd call your school board members. You'd call
the news station.
You'd call the superintendent. Why don't you call your bishop and say, Bishop, this happened. Have you had this situation? How would you respond? As a member of your congregation, I would encourage you to consider yourself a mandatory reporter, like it says in that policy. Stake president, I want to encourage you, if this happens to you again, to follow your authority, your values.
And I think this happened in a very big, real way with the whole youth interview thing. Like when Sam Young, his whole thing with that, it became so public, and so many parents actually stood up to bishops and complained and asked. Sounds like this needs to happen again, or there's a grassroots issue of people just standing up and saying, nope, this isn't going to happen anymore. This isn't how things are going to go. So
if this was your school district and your principal did this, and you're the type of people, Mormons are the type of, we get involved, what would you do? Who would you call? This church is your school district. Your bishop and your stake president and your young women's leaders. I hope every adult on this planet considers themselves a mandatory reporter.
And I'm going to generalize here that it blows my mind that the people that will go to a school board meeting and probably bring a flag or bring props or whatever to protest critical race theory being taught or masks are the same people that want to say, let's overlook this issue because these are good men. These are the people in authority. Like take some of that rage, and that rage and that you can use and do good with it. Like it said, do
hashtag we all are mandatory reporters. Protect the children.
Yeah.
And even somebody on Facebook, on TikTok, on my post, asked this honest question. She said, "Can't a bishop get sued if he tells?" And I texted a friend of ours that is a lawyer, and he said, "Not in the Arizona case, nor here in Idaho. There's complete immunity for good faith reporting. So Arizona is just like Idaho. They don't have to report, but they could have. And then I texted him and said, "Hey, Kerry and I are going to do a podcast. Do you have any thoughts?" This is Colby Reddish, my lawyer friend, and he did Mormon Stories podcast episode with his wife.
Good guy.
All right. He said, "I think I'd start by separating privilege from reporting. Privilege questions relate to what will or will not be admissible in court in the matter if the matter proceeds that far. It's like when apologists try to deny reputable secondhand statements by saying they're hearsay. Who cares? We're not a court of law right now, and we're talking about the duty to report. Second, the church often overreaches in the claim of privilege. Privilege applies in most instances when something is presumed confidential communication and it hasn't been shared outside of the confidentiality. If I were litigating against the church's claims of privilege for a confession, I'm pretty confident I could pull it apart very easily because the bishops aren't keeping these confessions secret anyways. They're involving Salt Lake at all times. They don't want to involve the state unless required to, allegedly, and from what I've seen repeatedly. Thirdly, last, you know I'm a lawyer, but my moral code is not defined exclusively by what the law lets me get away with. I think it's really disingenuous of members and the church to even use this excuse. When Joseph and Brigham Young were practicing polygamy, they were breaking the law of the land then. Why now does complying with its bare minimum act as some kind of magic defense? Bottom line is that there are all kinds of things that are immoral that aren't illegal, and vice versa too.
Again, that really goes back to like yourself and your own authority and your own think for yourself.
Yeah,
In situations
and
like this.
and identify. So I build on that and say, identify your values.
Yeah.
In that, whether you're a believing member, deconstructing or reconstructing, invest time. I think there's value in investing time in identifying your values, going through, writing them down, even prioritizing them, and saying what is most important for me, and following those values. And my response to when the church's response, which I'm only going to share thing one, in the church's response, they even cited in the Deseret News article, which is part of the church, right, that they gave an example of a bishop that was sued by the perpetrator's family members for breaching confidentiality as an excuse. They're like, and then they say, well, the person reneged on, and it
didn't go anywhere because
and the TikTokers I need to give credit where credit's due for all these TikTokers. It's like we learned that do what is right, let the consequence follow. Bishops, Relief Society presidents, young men's leaders, young women's leaders, all of us. I'm of the opinion, and should I tell that story that I told you I might tell?
Yeah, just be careful not to disclose any.
In my responsibility as a seminary teacher, a seminary student of mine divulged to me in a conversation that the individual,
and you were at like a church meeting.
It was at a church function, but I was the seminary teacher, right, at the function.
It was kind of a seminary function. You were like almost the leader over this meeting.
They were suicidal, and they had means to commit suicide because I've been trained to ask questions. Mm-hmm. Right? Do you have a plan? If anybody ever says they're suicidal, just ask, do you have a plan? Right? So I took that information and I decided that I would be comfortable only with that information.
I want to stop you for just a second.
Yeah.
What did your seminary training tell you that you needed to do first?
Talk to the bishop.
Okay.
And then call the helpline.
And you did this instead. Go ahead.
I talked to a bishopric member, knowing that I was going to go talk to the parent myself, and because I knew the parent.
You wouldn't, like if that bishopric member had said, we're going to handle this, you weren't going to defer to that. You were going to go.
I wouldn't have been done there. Okay. And I decided personally that I would be comfortable once the parent or parents verbally assured me, because their child said, I know I have means, I know where some means, a method in the house are for me to fulfill, to end my life by suicide. And so I knocked on their door. The one person decided to come with me. I just said, hey, somebody else is keeping your child busy so that your child doesn't come right here and see me talking to you. This is what your child told me. They said they know how to do this, and I want you to know that and will you please confirm to me that you will make sure that that's not accessible.
And then you yourself, with your values and your intuition and everything, once the parents understood and knew, you felt comfortable leaving it in their hands.
Yes. And this is a different issue, but it's their similar principles.
Right.
I chose my personal values. In a conversation with this child, this minor, this minor's youth leader, the youth leader said, well, I talked to the bishop about this something before, and the bishop said he was going to handle it, but I felt I should. And I told this youth leader, I said, in my opinion, you are a member of the community before you're a member of the church.
And I want to take that a step further and say you're a human being before you're a member of the church.
And so even though your interaction with this minor might be because of your relationship with this church, you have a responsibility to mankind and to that child.
Yeah.
And so and I said, Bishop so-and-so is just a person.
This can be a whole nother episode of how members and the church in general cause a lot of problems with making you think that they're more than that.
Well, when you have vertical authority, it's one thing is...
Well, and when they're given special powers from God.
Well, where's the power of discernment?
Yeah.
Where is it?
When you feel comfortable deferring to someone who has special powers from God.
Yeah. Well, there is no discernment. Yeah. There is no discernment. And I said, the bishop is just another member of the community, and you need to, and this is before I had done my values assessment, this is before, and I basically said, if you feel that's what you need to do, that's what you need to do.
Because she was obviously feeling her values in conflict with what her leaders were telling her to do.
Exactly. And so I'll guess I want to, are we done?
I think we're kind of done.
I want to end again with
sum up.
Yeah. Use your gifts to get involved.
And this is from
make a difference. Yes.
Brad, right?
Yes, okay. This is Brad Wilcox. So if you're a member of the church, or you're not, I'm going to take my ending message from Brad Wilcox. Use your gifts to get involved and make a difference, to do your best to steer your faith in a better direction.
Amen.
For your community.
Like that. All right. See you next time.
Catch you on the flippity flip.